Okay, so we are still moving through Exodus. It's the second book of the Bible. This is going to be the third chapter. We're going to cover Exodus 3. It is verses 1 through 22. So prior to this, we got to get a very short kind of Cliff's Notes version of Moses's history, his background, and how he ends up in the desert, in Midian, with a wife and some kids. Like, we get from all the babies should die to how we end up with the start of this man's life. And so in chapter 3, we start off seeing that Moses is keeping the flock of his father-in-law, Jethro. Jethro is Zipporah's father. He went, as Moses arrived in Midian, as kind of a fugitive. He took him in, he gave him a trade, gave him a life, gave him his daughter as his wife. Like, he started his whole life here. And so as he's like in the desert, he gets to this mountain, and this Mount Horeb. And this mountain is, he's like walking the sheep. So they're just kind of traveling. They go from kind of pasture to pasture to pasture to feed these sheep, give them good exercise, all the stuff that they need, versus keeping them in a pen where they're just kind of locked up in a city. And so as he's traveling, he gets to Mount Horeb, and in verse 2, it says an angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire in a bush. So we have heard the burning bush a lot of times. We've heard so much talked about, but this is where it occurs in the Bible. In Exodus chapter 3, there is a bush that is burning. There is a flame, a fire on this bush, but the bush itself is not being impacted by it. A lot of times we see it in movies and things where it is like this sticks. It's just series of sticks that are there. And the flame is kind of in there, but it's not getting smaller. It's not burning to the ground. The bush isn't changing in shape or size. It's not catching on anything else around it. I do believe there are leaves on this bush, because a dry bush being on fire means that the leaves are probably burned up. But if he is watering these sheep and he is walking in through this space, it's because there's green vegetation there. Like, they're not going to walk the sheep through this dry, barren, dusty area. They're going to walk them through a place that has grass and leaves and flowers. So I always, in my head, picture this bush having leaves on it, and that is the thing that catches his attention. Not because there's a fire on a bush. It's the desert. Nature obeys God even when we don't. So the desert has little things where fires will break out and will scorch the land because it makes the soil better. Sometimes it'll go through and it'll burn off a lot of vegetation acidic, so you don't end up with, a whole lot of thick leaves. Like, there are certain things in nature that God has designed for the earth to take care of itself. And so it says, it looked and it beheld a bush burned with fire, and the bush was not consumed. Meaning this is an actual bush. I'm pretty certain it has leaves on it. In my head, it's green, and I'm going to go with that. But it is a flame on it, but it is not. It is not being consumed. It's not getting smaller. It's no anything coming off of it. It's not catching. It's not any of those things. So moving on. Moses was like, let me take a look at this. Like, he says to himself, let me go over here and look and see what this is. He recognizes that this is abnormal. He recognizes that this is not like a conditional kind of little brush fire that takes off and, burns off some dry leaves. This is not something that is typically seen in nature, which is why it lends for me to say there's leaves on this bush. And he was like, let me go over here and check this thing out. And when he gets there, it says the Lord saw and turned aside. When the Lord saw that he turned aside to see, God called him out of the midst of the bush. So it started off saying there's an angel of the Lord that appeared. And then it says that the Lord talks to him. Angels appear how God tells them to. Angels do what God tells them to do. They say what God tells them to say. They are effectively a speaker. They're like walking Bluetooth speakers. The conversations that they have are the words that God gave them. They are obedient to God, period, without free will, without choice. So when he's having a conversation with an angel of the Lord or having a conversation with the Lord, it is absolutely because it is one and the same. The angels say and do, whether you talk to somebody on the phone or face to face, is basically what's happening. And so God calls him by his name. He says, Moses. He calls him Moses, Moses. And Moses, of course, answers, here am I. I'm here. What are we doing? He has this conversation with the bush. He hears his name come out of the bush, and he is standing there looking at it. He's talking to it. And his answer to that, his answer from God is, don't come any closer and take your shoes off. You're on holy ground. You dusty, you dirty on the outside, but I know your heart. I know the purity of who you are. I know who I designed you to be and why I had your life go the way that it did. I know your heart, and your heart is pure enough to stand here. But don't come any closer. Don't try and touch the flame. Don't try and do nothing silly and figure this thing out. I need you to focus. And so God identifies himself as the father of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. This is the Abrahamic promise that has fallen on these Israelites. This is the God who has made himself clear to Abraham, and they followed and worshiped going into Egypt. And he's saying, yes, I know you remember me. I know there was a promise that was made. There was a covenant that said that there was going to be a time frame for this. And when the time for this is ended, I'm going to pull you out. I am bringing you back to all of those prophecies that I made, all those covenants that I entered into with you. The word that I gave, it is absolutely time. And so God references what he knows to show him who he is. And it said he got afraid to look upon God, because before it was a burning bush. Now it is evidence of a very real God. And a little reverential respect is necessary. The Bible says that we should fear God. It is a reverential fear, not like, oh, he's going to kill me, and just be afraid of your salvation, be afraid of having an interaction and a conversation with God, but a respect in the way that we used to respect our elders. You wouldn't dare talk crazy to somebody's grandmother. It was just a respect level that they earned by having lived for so long. He is in this place of, he was afraid to look at God. It is a respect. He now understands this is not merely a burning bush. This is a great big thing. This is God himself who is talking to me, and I am dirty and dusty from this field. I am a fugitive murderer. I am a stranger in this land. I don't even have anything of my own. I work for my father-in-law. I live off of him. And God is talking to me. And so he starts to kind of look at himself a little different. Like, who am I for this? And God continues to explain, like, I've seen the affliction of my people. I know what's going on in Egypt. I told them that I was coming, and I have heard their cry, and the time is now. I've come down to deliver them out of Egypt. In verse 8, it says, I came to deliver them out of Egypt. This is not a, hey, I sent my secretary, I sent somebody. Hey, he said, I'm part of this. I came down here to take care of this thing. I'm handling it myself. And then there's the promise for a land flowing with milk and honey. The land flowing with milk and honey is not like a milk river that, is going. There's not honey streaming down off the trees like Willy Wonka style candy paradise. A land flowing with milk and honey is that all the resources to have these things are that are going to be there. There's pastures to support these animals. There's going to be open land and fields. There's going to be flowers and trees and fruit so that this honey can be developed, because these pollinators, these bees need, this pollen and nectar to be able to do what they're doing. The promise is not that there's going to be milk and honey literally, although it will be there. The promise is that everything that is needed to have a fantastic, healthy society, to support a group of people, is going to be present. When you have a promise from God, the promise, especially when God promises you prosperity may not be just walking into houses that are pre-purchased. It may be having the money to purchase it. It is having the resources to be able to do it. God may promise you he'll absolutely promise you that you're going to have a church. He's going to promise you to be a preacher or a pastor or whatever that is, if that's the promise that he gave you. The promise is not that you're going to walk into a church that's fully functioning and running and everything's perfect and you just got to show up on Sunday morning and preach. But the resources will be available. You will have the people that you need to make this thing run. You will have the heart and the time and the obedience and the finances. Everything that you need to make it happen will be there. So that is what this promise is. Not that there's literally going to be milk and honey only, because they already, because they're going to need more than milk and honey to survive. But the resources, the land is going to be rich and wealthy, and it's going to give them everything they need in order to have the things that they need to support their growth. And he lists off in verse 8 a series of people. These are nations or tribes, cities that have people that inhabit them. Remember, with the Tower of Babel, people broke off based off of language. Cultures begin to split and emerge, and because when you're away from your grandmother who has taught you these traditions, you do the part you remember. Put a little extra on it. Or you do it the way that you want to. And we start to see there's changes in cultures. Also, as you move away and you move away from the religious practices of your elders, then you start to get a little stuff mixed in there because you're trying to do what you remember, or you want to do it a little different way. So we see all these different groups, and it says the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites. These are all cities. These are the people who inhabit these cities that make up this big territory of land that Abraham walked around and got marked as their land. And it says that in verse 9 that God is saying that he's going to deliver his people from this oppression that they are in. Now, God tells Moses, I'm going to send you to Pharaoh, and I want you to tell him to let my people leave from Egypt. He said, I want you to tell Pharaoh, I'm going to send you to Pharaoh so that you can bring my people out. Okay? That you can bring my people out. He hasn't told him what to say to Pharaoh yet. We haven't gotten to let my people go, because there's a little more to that than we typically pay attention to. But he's saying, I'm going to send you to Pharaoh so you can pull my people out. You're going to be the vehicle that I use to make this happen. And Moses was like, who am I that I should go talk to Pharaoh? So for everybody who believed the movies or had an understanding that Moses and Pharaoh grew up like brothers, why would he question who am I to go talk to Pharaoh if in fact he and Pharaoh were brothers? If in fact he was part of the royal family? He knew he was Hebrew. He knew he was Hebrew. He was raised as an Egyptian Hebrew. He knew he was. And it wasn't something that he was ashamed of. It's just like, who am I to go into these royal courts? Like, if you woke up tomorrow and God was like, hey, I need you to tell the president something. Who am I to just be knocking on the White House front door and be like, I got a message for the president? Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. Don't do it. And so God says, certainly I will be with you. Certainly. Like, this is absolutely, like, without a shadow of a doubt. Like, I'm going to be there. I'm going. I'm coming through with you. You're not going by yourself. And I'm a king. So I can talk to y'all little human king. I made him the same way I made you. I can go, and I'm going to take you. And I am the authority that's going to go and make you welcome in his presence. Make you enough for his presence. It's me. I'm going to qualify you to go and do this. And God tells him, look, here's a promise to you that you will know that everything I'm telling you now has happened and is done in the way that I said it, is because the same way you're having a conversation with me now, you're going to come back to this mountain and worship me when it's over. This is my sign to you that you've done the thing that you really think is impossible right now. And Moses says, look, who do I tell the people you are? Because I'm not certain that they're going to believe that this happened. Why would they believe that we had this conversation? In Exodus chapter 3, verse 14 is where God says, he says, I am that I am. Moses asked what his name, and he said, I am that I am. He said, tell them that I am sent me. Tell them that I am sent you. Tell them that. And one thing that I love to do with this I am is I read it as I am that. I am. That's the way I read it. I know commas and inflections and all those things are different, but I read it that way because Sometimes when I am in a space where I don't feel good enough, I don't feel strong enough, I don't feel brave enough, I'm not whatever it is that I'm just not enough for in that moment, I can say, God, I don't think I have it. And God will say, what you need? You need a little courage? I am that. I am. I'm that courage you need. I can hear the Holy Spirit telling me sometimes when I am feeling like I don't have the experience, I don't have the know-how, I don't qualify for this. The Holy Spirit is saying, oh, you need some experience? I am that. I am. I am that experience that you need. I am that strength that you need. I am that bravery that you need. I am. I am. And that's what God is telling me. That's what I see in this. And that's the way I carry it, is that whatever it is that I need, God is saying to me, I am that. I am. Don't even worry about it. I am that. Mm-hmm. You need $4, $5 more? I am that. Don't even worry about it. I got you. I am. I am that brave. I am that strength. I am that courage. I am that. So sometimes I have to pray that back to myself. God, I need you to be that. And he'd be like, I am that. I am that bravery. I am. So, but this is where it is. Exodus chapter 3, verse 14 is where God tells Moses, I am that I am. That is the I am statement. And God continues to talk to him. So he done told him, hey, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to go with you. If people don't believe what you said, then tell them that I am sent you. They know what this means. They're waiting to hear this. And you're going to tell them that's what it is. And then you're going to remind them of the promise that was given to your fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You're going to give them back the word that was given, the prophecy that's been carried, the promise that has been carried, the word that they've held in their hearts in a secret place saying, God, is it time yet? When they cried out to me from Egypt, give them this and tell them, it's me. This is it. And so he tells me in verse 16 to go gather the elders of Israel, get them together with you and say that God visited me and told me what to do. And say to them, tell them that I'm going to have them overcome all those same groups, that I'm going to have them walk into this land of milk and honey. Give them the message that I'm giving you for them. Tell them the promise. Before, the promise was that if I brought you in, I was going to bring you out. So now God is giving them a new promise. The promise that was given to Jacob when he traveled and went all these places. God said, if I take you in, I'm going to bring you out. And so they understood that they went into Egypt, they were going to be brought out. And now he's saying, I'm getting ready to fulfill that problem. So here's the promise. So here's the next one. When you satisfy a goal, don't you set a new goal? When you perform the thing that you've been working towards, don't you set another thing? Don't you find something new? You've been trying to learn another language. You mastered that language. Don't you have a different goal? So here's what it is. God is saying, hey, I'm about to do the thing that y'all been waiting for. So here's the next thing. Not only am I going to bring you out, but now I'm going to bring you into the promised land. Not only am I going to bring you out, but I'm going to bring you into a space where these cities and these people live. So there are homes that are already built. There are stalls. There are stores. There's an entire life that is functioning in these places. There are fields and farms. There are lakes and streams and rivers. Everything you need is going to be there. And I am going to bring you to that place. And now I'm going to promise you the victory over the people that built them so that you can have these cities you didn't have to build. You can go and harvest from these fields you didn't have to plant. And so, in verse 19, God tells him it's not going to be simple. I know I'm making it seem like this is an easy task. I'm telling you to go in and get everybody riled up so they can leave. But what I'm telling you now is it's not going to be easy. Pharaoh's not going to give up easy. This Pharaoh came up in a time where they've had slaves, or they've had someone to do this work. That he's come up in a time where he didn't really have the same, he don't have the same heart as some other people may have had. This is what he knows. This is the strength and the backbone of the economy. And so he's not going to give it up easy. He's not. And I'm telling you he's not. So you're prepared for the opposition. What I want you to know and understand about this opposition is is just so that I can show my hand. I can prove myself mighty. I'm telling them that I am, so I gotta be all that. I'm telling them I am, so I have to be that I am. I have to do it. And so he's telling him that. And he's saying, right in verse 21 and 22. In verses 21 and 22, he's saying, look, I want you to go in and I want you to tell the people, when it's time to leave, I want you to go borrow something from everybody. Go and get, because that way, not only am I going to inflict pain on this land and these people, what I am going to do is also rob the wealth of the city when it leaves. I'm going to take, so not only are y'all on your way over to this land of milk and honey, but I'm going to give you resources to take with you on your way. There's something that I need from this. So I'm going to ask you to take it now so that when I get to the place that I need it, you already have it in your hands. Okay. So what he's saying here in verses 21 and 22 is, I'm going to show the people favor. Ask them to borrow stuff. Get all the gold and silver and rubies, get all the precious metals and jewels that you can hold on to. So when it's time to leave, you're going to take it with you. So you're going to wear the wealth of this country out on your back. So when I ask you for it as escaped slaves, you are not going to be wandering around as escaped slaves, broken down, clothes worn out, starving. You're going to walk away with the wealth of a nation on your back. You won't look like escaped slaves in the wilderness. You're going to look like a tribe. You're going to look like a nation. You're going to look like an army. You're going to look like wealth. You're going to look like what I see you as, even when you don't see it yet. God will absolutely have you gather everything you need to do the thing he wants you to do far in advance. Far in advance. Nobody is really like, oh, I want to go swimming and wait till they get in the pool to put their bathing suit on. Nah, you bought that bathing suit. You didn't took the tags off, changed your clothes, took a shower, and then got into the pool with that bathing suit. You don't just get in the pool and decide this is what I need to be able to stay here. You have it already. And so what he's doing is he's pulling everything together so they have what they need in advance of needing it. Because he knows what's coming. So, quick recap. In Exodus chapter 3, Moses sees the burning bush. This burning bush is a flame, an open flame sitting on top of this bush, but the leaves are not being burned off. The sticks are not being broken down. This is not changing in any way. He goes to investigate, and God was like, well, I got your attention, friend. Take off your shoes and stay where you at, because this is holy ground, and I need you to prepare to worship. And God gives him the plan. He said, I'm going to use you. You're going to be the vehicle that I use to pull the people out of Egypt. I promised their forefathers, that there would be a land of milk and honey, that if I took them into a land, I would take them out. They would grow and be prosperous, and they would have all these wonderful things. I promised Abraham that everywhere his feet traveled was going to be the land for his descendants. I promised him more descendants than stars in the sky and dust on the earth. So I have to fulfill this promise. I'm God. I can't lie. And so he comes and he tells Moses, you're going to be the vehicle I use to pull my people out of Egypt and bring forth the answer to all those promises that I made. I'm getting ready to do the thing. And so Moses asked him, like, who I'm supposed to tell, and I'm talking to, like, God said it? And God tells him, tell them I am that I am. Tell them that I am sent you. And they're going to listen and they're going to believe you, because they're waiting for this. They're waiting for this. The confirmation is over there. You got to get there. And what he tells them is, as proof that it is literally God talking to you. It is literally me telling you you're going to be the person that's going to do the things I need done. This place where we are now, you're going to come back to this place when it's all said and done, and it's going to be worship. So at this point, you're standing on holy ground. You're in my presence. I'm giving you the assignment. I'm preparing you to go. And after it's all said and done, you're going to come back and you're like, you know what, God, you did do that. I am right back where I started from. But with a big difference. And we got to be okay with coming back to where we started from, but with the difference of having God on our side and having done the thing that God called us to do. And so he's given the instruction to go into Egypt, gather all the elders together, tell them what I said to tell them, remind them of the promise that I gave to Abraham on the land, the promise I gave to Isaac on the people and the safety, and that I gave Jacob, that I would bring him in and bring him out. Like, go back to these things that I said and remind them of this. And when you do, be prepared, because it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be any of those things. What it is going to be is an opportunity for me to show myself as God to the Egyptians, to the Israelites, and every other nation around. It is my way of showing the world who I am. I am going to do this. It's going to be hard because I need it to be difficult so people know this was not something that you negotiated on your own. This was a God move. And on top of that, while you're there, as a promise, as a blessing, a little sherry or sugar or whipped cream on the top, it is, you guys are going to walk out of this nation with its wealth on your back. You're going to carry it away. You won't even have time for bread to rise. Y'all won't have time to go and pack up leftovers and bring food with you, but you will leave with the wealth of a nation. And if you look at the Joseph and how Joseph was in there, what he collected in the government during the famine, the ownership of people's homes and lands, all the money, they're literally pulling all the wealth out of the country when they leave. And we'll get into that as we get into further chapters. But I want you guys to remember, if God sends you on a mission, do not disqualify yourself. Do not decide that God is wrong about you. Do not decide that you don't have the capability to get it done. Trust and know that God knows who he's talking to. And you can ask for a sign. Moses has a sign. This bush is what caught his attention. This conversation with God came about because God showed himself to him. Ask God to show himself to you. All right, y'all. Be blessed.